Hi folks, it's Andy. Welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. Okay, we have plenty of questions for you today. We've got some crackers today. I'm really looking forward to jumping into these. Before I jump into them though, don't forget, the YouTube stuff like share, subscribe, all that sort of nonsense. And most importantly, support the channel by shopping at kendostar.com. It's a win-win. You get amazing, brilliant, fantastic, stupendously awesome Kendo equipment. Of course, I'd say that I own Kendo Star, but everyone agrees. Check out our reviews, our Trustpilot ratings. I'm sure there's people in your dojo that's using Kendo Star by now. We're like, we've got to be the biggest international one, I'm sure of it, the way things are going. So shop at Kendo Star. It helps keep the camera rolling, the lights on, my kids fed, all that sort of stuff. So make sure you're doing that. Right, let's get into these questions. First one, this one came to me by email. Okay, so it says, I hope you're having wonderful days in Japan, Britain. I'm in Britain. I would like to be in Japan. I was supposed to be in Japan. But yeah, things didn't go to plan over the last couple of years. Anyway, I've been watching your channel ever since 3 years ago when I freshly joined Kendo. Great. Thank you for your numerous advice for beginners. Good. Recently, I left my university club and visited other dojos. I noticed that whenever I tried to attack the opponent's men, they sometimes stuck their shiai against my chest or even stuck it to my throat. A rather painful experience. This is especially when I keiko with senseis who are 4th dan and above. I asked my sensei about it. He encouraged me to push forward and bend their shiai, telling me these senseis were using this move to give me a tough lesson on taking the center. However, I did hit the opponent's men when I gained the center. The pop sound was solid and my stances were straight. The only difference being a long stick stuck against my chest. This is so perplexing. Can you offer me some advice that I don't get stuck on my throat again? Okay, so look, yeah, it's really common, actually, and it's not like it's not really a tough lesson. It's super normal. If you like, what it is the sensei showing you that the opportunity that you're striking, it's not really just taking the center. It's that you're just sort of attacking randomly or attacking at not an opportune moment. And you're kind of almost mindlessly attacking. That's when they're most likely to do that. And they'll just leave themselves in kamae to show really you haven't really created an opportunity. It isn't something to be necessarily discouraged by. I don't think the way you should do it, and if I'm honest, I'm sorry to disagree with what you've been told, but you shouldn't sort of keep pushing and bend the shiai. It's not cool to do that. You could break the shiai. That isn't the purpose of it. That's not what they're trying to get you to do. It's kind of annoying when someone does that, if I'm honest. It's like, all right, yeah, you really don't get it. Don't just keep pushing. If you made the strike and they stop you with the shiai, then move back to kamae and try again. Don't just stop instantly. You stop, but you don't need to keep pushing forward if they're stopping you. It's not like a sort of macho contest either. I'm not saying that's what you're doing. Just it can come off like that though. So instead, if you find yourself landing on the sensei shiai, then, you can keep the zanshin as it were, but just don't keep pushing. Just, return to chudan and try again. Like I say, the lesson that's really trying to teach you is that you're attacking at points when you shouldn't really be attacking, or you're just kind of attacking mindlessly or randomly. It's kind of showing a little bit of expectation from you, so it's a good sign. But yeah, I mean, it's just going to be something that comes with practice, and it still happens. It's going to happen all the way through it. If I practice with senseis, it happens to me as well. So yeah. What I don't recommend, like I say, is pushing, and what I don't recommend, whatever you don't do, especially in the keiko with the senior, don't start like bashing down the shiai and stuff like that. It's not a really cool thing to do. Shiai is different, of course. Okay. Next one. Any tips for tenouchi? I'm doing a lot of Kote suburi. It helps a bit. It helps, but I'm wondering if there's anything else I can do. Thanks for all your work, Fish Sensei. Next month I'll be having my first exam to determine my Q grade, wearing my Kendo style Borgo, of course. Oh, fantastic. Good. Okay, so tenouchi, you can really help your tenouchi a lot just by doing suburi. You don't have to do the Kote suburi. That can help. That'll help you build strength. But what you really need to work on is this sort of, let me see if I can get enough room to show you. This sort of action with the hands, right? This part here, yeah? So think about this when you're doing your suburi, that your hands are in the right place on the shiai. You're not holding like this. Yeah, they're in the right place on the shiai. And when you're making your strike, you're making the right hand position here, okay? Here like this, yeah? Men, and you're holding the shiai properly, yeah? Like this. This action here, twisting the wrists like that, and when you strike, your arms are straight but not locked, yeah? Straight but not locked, okay? And I think you'll improve it a lot. I had trouble with improving my tenouchi probably when I was like around 4th dan, early days into my 4th dan when I first moved over to Japan. So one of the things that was told to me was like, look, you know, tenouchi is not quite there. So you know, it's something I really did focus on, and yeah, it was mainly suburi, I think, that helped me sort it out. But it's concentrating on the correct motion, not just building the strength. Okay. Next one. Hi Andy, I just saw your short Kendo truth bombs video. If your opponent moves first, can you retake the initiative instead of falling into the trap of reacting? And if so, how would you? Cheers. Okay, so I put a video out the other day just on my personal Facebook, and I think I posted it in the Kendo Show Early Access group. So if you're not in that group, you should be in it. There's a link in the description. And it's just like an informal video, like from footage from my own dojo when I was just giving a little talk to some of the people that were at the dojo about essentially the interaction that you should be having with your opponent. So you shouldn't just be hitting when you feel like it, but you should be trying to create or kind of initiate some kind of reaction from your opponent. So what I was saying was that, you know, you kind of like this, and then what you want to kind of do is if you kind of make that sort of step in, this sort of step in here, then often the opponent's going to react. You know, they might try to block, so you can hit where they're open. They might try to attack, so you can use Debano or Ojibasa. Or one of my students said, what happens if they don't react, and then you might be able to hit them. So what you're saying is, well, what happens if you're on the other side of that, and you get to here, and the opponent steps in first? They step in first. What happens then? How can you retake that initiative instead of just being the one that sort of attacks? So it's quite hard, and it's quite advanced stuff. All right, it's quite advanced stuff, and I was kind of introducing it to my dojo in that practice, because we have quite a good variance of ability levels. You know, we've got some higher downgrades, and some of them there would like teenage kids, like my daughter as well, for example. It's something I want her to start thinking about, even if I don't expect her to be able to properly do it. But essentially, there's most of us have heard the term seme, right? Seme. So it is this seme. Seme is not just stepping forward, right? It's not just stepping to cutting distance. Seme is to assail your opponent, right? And it means to put that pressure on, make them feel afraid that they're, either afraid or whatever it could be, that make them. It's basically to make them get a reaction out of them, isn't it? There's also a concept that's talked about quite a lot in Japan, at least the senseis that I was lucky enough to learn from talked a lot about, and it was Seme-Kaeshi. Okay, Seme-Kaeshi. So we have Kaeshi waza, right? So when someone hits men, you can do men Kaeshi do. Well, you can do the Seme-Kaeshi. So when one person steps in here first, you can also apply your own seme as a kind of counter seme. And you can do that, you know, obviously you've got to consider the distance as well. And this is the difference between, there's a big stigma around stepping back in Kendo, right? But the problem isn't with the act of stepping back. The action is the issue is with the action of retreating, or you know, trying to escape, right? That's a problem. But not necessarily taking a step back if you are still applying seme forward as you step back. This is also possible. Okay, so maybe let's see if I can do this with my fingers. One person steps in like this, or I'll do it the other way so it's easier. One person steps in like this. Maybe this side can, in response to them stepping in like this, they can also apply seme as they readjust the distance, or maybe they can, as this one steps in, they can step in as well and then hit. So there's a kind of chess game happening, all right? Because, you know, this person here might step in here like this and try to take that initiative and assume that the next action from the opponent is going to be, let's say, an attack. So when that seme comes, that Seme-Kaeshi comes, they're going to try to do the Debanawaza, or they're going to try and do the Ojiwaza, in which case the hands are going to lift or something like that. And then by the action of your Seme-Kaeshi, you've got a reaction out of them who are trying to get a reaction out of you. It gets a bit kind of Kendo-ception, but, you know, it's a very deep concept, all right? I mean, we're talking like Kodansha level stuff, that's, you know, it's not easy, and if you know, it takes years to develop and to fully understand. But it does, when I say, let's just simplify this, when I say that in that video, for example, that if one person takes that step in first, that's it, it's game. It doesn't mean that's it, it's game over for the other person. There is, of course, ways for them to retake the initiative. Okay. Sometimes you can make it look like you're buckling under the pressure, right? You could, against their seme, maybe you could retreat so that they think they can come in and maybe make a strike, but actually it's not a real retreat, it's a trap. So, you know, there's lots of ways that you can deal with it as well. The point is, the big point, the overall overarching point of the whole lesson that I was trying to get across is that what you can't do, and this relates to the previous question about having the shinai stuck on your chest or on your ago, is that you can't just do Kendo by yourself, right? And what I mean by that is, even though you've got a partner, you're just doing it by yourself. So yeah, I want to hit men. Yeah, man. Okay, next Kote. Okay, next ski. Like this, and there's no real consideration or thought being put into what's happening with the opponent, or what movements the opponent's making, or what their opponent's likely to do, or how your actions are going to affect the opponent. When, you know, all that's just not there. When really that needs to be there. Okay, there needs to be some kind of communication between you and your opponent, and I keep using this word opponent. I should use the word partner, really, because the proper word is aite. It's not you know, teki, right? It's not enemy or opponent, that sort of thing. It's aite. It's partner. Okay, so there is, although it's an adversarial combat, you are also working together. There is, I keep knocking the microphone, sorry. There is the concept of aiki, where you are still working together with your partner so that the contest can happen properly within the realms of what Kendo is, in order for everybody to gain out of it as best as they possibly can. You know, it's not rules, but it's kind of the way it's done for it to be Kendo. So yeah. That's a whole topic on its own, isn't it? I've kind of spent a bit longer on that than I thought. Okay, next one. Hi Fish Sensei, I've been in Kendo for 12 months, and like everyone, I get some pretty decent blisters. The two I got on my left foot the other day made me finally tape up to allow me to walk and train. The question is what weird and wonderful ways have you heard of or used to toughen up feet apart from simply training hard? Thanks. Okay, so this is a bit of a misnomer. you don't need like super hard, super rough feet, like feet of stone, to be able to do kendo without getting blisters. Actually, of course, because kendo is barefoot, if you do kendo a lot, then the skin on the soles of your feet is probably going to get quite rough or hard, because you'll be spending a lot of time barefoot doing suriashi, fumikomi, those sort of things. But to prevent blisters, hardening up your feet isn't the best way of doing it. The best way of doing it is correcting your footwork, and that's why you're 12 months in. It takes years to develop footwork properly. So this is the problem. It's probably coming. You say it's from your left foot. It's coming from your left foot pointing outwards. I'm almost 100% sure of it. It's almost always that. Yeah, if your left foot's not perfectly straight, it's sort of outwards. Because what you're doing is you're trying to launch yourself forward. You're either twisting your foot as you launch, or you're just not launching it in the way that's efficient. So it's causing blisters on your left foot. You really need to get that left foot straight, and then you'll be able to push yourself forward without twisting, and obviously putting that strain on the skin of the bottom of your feet. I really think that's the way to fix blisters on your feet. So, yeah. Next one. Hi, Sensei. Hope you and your family are doing well. You're doing great and all safe. Yes. 2 questions about Borga. I feel like the shape is a little off and the space between my arm and the Kote futon is minimal. But my himo are loose, no dangling, but it should have some margin to expand. It seems that the futon is really hard. What's the best way to shape it? Second, I've seen a video of someone cutting the mendare to make it shorter. Is this a common practice or something random I came across? If it's the former, do you recommend it in any case? Okay, here's my Kote. Here's my victory Kote. Beautiful Kote. Dark brown, Kazari. This doesn't it look good? Love it. It looks so good. Right, so here's how your Kote want to fit you. Alright, these fit me pretty well. Alright, so there's space inside here. Yeah, there's some space in here. You don't want this over tightened, right? So that it's like that against your skin. That's going to hurt when you get a Kote strike, alright? If it's dead tight against you like that. You don't want it to bell out like that, so it looks like a bell shape. It wants to be it looks better if it's somewhat cylindrical, yeah? So these himo should be tight, not flapping around and stuff, but not tight against the skin like that, okay? It needs to have a little bit of give in it so that you can move your arms properly, and that there's enough space in there so that when you get hit, this happens. Yeah, and that'll properly reduce the impact. If it's like that, this hurts much more. It's much more sort of this action of it coming against, the air between, the air will take out some of the impact. So if it's too tight against just your arm like that, it's no good, okay? In terms of shaping it, I don't know where you got your Kote from, but if the futon is really hard, then I don't think you got it from Kendo Star. So, you can see here, the futon should, really hard futon is not a benefit. What you want is, it doesn't want to be thin and soft, but if it's somewhat soft and malleable and cushioned is what you want. That's going to take the best, shock. That's going to give you the best shock absorption. These really hard ones, it's not going to help. Like I say, when it's against your arm and you're getting that strike, what you want is for it to be cushioned, that blow. You don't want a hard futon bashing into your arm. It's going to be painful. All right. But so shaping it, what you can do is you can just shape it like this. Okay, so it wants to be somewhat cylindrical like that rather than conical like that. Yeah, cylindrical like that. All right, but make sure you've got enough space in your Kote himo, yeah, to fit your arm inside with a good sort of, I'd say there's a good finger's worth or more space in here. All right, so that I've got that extra cushioning. Now, as for your mendare, you've seen a video of someone cutting their mendare to make it shorter. Do not do that. Do not cut your own mendare. Do not do it. It's a bad idea, okay? It's a bad idea. If you need the mendare cutting down, get a professional to do it, but I wouldn't recommend that either. These days, most men that come out, I don't know anywhere these days, to be honest. Oh, well, I shouldn't say that, because there are places that are doing it that are yeah, that, you know, you can often tell when like a burger shop isn't run by people that do kendo because they've got men with massive mendai. But the what you have is there's a, like it does come down to a bit of the quality of the burger because well, when I say the quality of the burger, it's more the experience of the place that's selling it. I'll come to the question in a sec, but if a company doesn't really have much kendo experience, what they'll do, they'll use the same futon, the men futon, that when their workshop or factory, wherever they're making it, makes the men, they'll make all the men futon and they'll make them all the same, and they'll use the same one for every size. So that means that the bigger sizes have slightly shorter men daddy, and the smaller ones have slightly longer ones. But in order for them to have a long enough mendari for the big ones, it means that the little ones have really big long mendari, right? So they just make massive futon and then use that on all of them. It's not a great way to go. So, you know, a decent burger shop like Kendo Star would you know, we put out men that have the appropriate size mendari. A few years ago, I'd say 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was really common and really fashionable to have super short mendari, and they were like almost this short. And they look kind of a bit silly now in retrospect, but they're really starting to disappear fast because the All Japan Kendo Federation and in turn the International Kendo Federation has sort of come out and said that's not allowed, like you can't have men that are like that. And they're starting to put out regulations on the size of the men buton, on the size of the Kote buton, on the size of the eguri. That's this, you see this spot, this curve here. You used to have some that were like really curved there, how deep that's allowed to be and stuff like that. Now we've been on the ball with this since before they put that in, so we've always manufactured within the guidelines of that. So we make sure that the mendari aren't too long, but they're also long enough to fit the regulations as well. Don't start chopping up your men. It's not going to end well, all right? It's going to look terrible, and it's just don't do it. Just do not do it, all right? I really don't want you to go out and chop up your burger, okay? Next one. Hello again, Andy, and happy 2022. I occasionally seem to have issues with my men popping off my chin if I happen to get stuck during tsubazeriai. The opening was measured properly to accommodate my head, face, and padding sits comfortably in the right places, but I feel like I might be tying the men wrong or tying the door too high, and it's running into the ago. Any recommendations for avoiding this problem? Yeah, so it's how you're tying the men. Probably. I'm sure the men fits you fine, but you probably need to tie it a bit tighter. Maybe you are wearing the door a little bit too high as well, which isn't helping. But if you can easily pop the men off, it shouldn't be impossible to get off. But if you can easily pop it off, just like, you know, from like clashing or something, or the door coming up, it needs to be tied a lot tighter. So what you need to do is when you come to tie it, make sure that the knot is at the eye level, all right, not too high. If it's too high, it's going to come off. Yeah, so it's at the eye level, and then make sure you tie it really quite tight, all right, really quite tight. And then once you've done that, make sure the himo are all the same length, and then you want to grab the mend at it and you want to pull them outwards and forwards this way, all right? And that's going to make this nice shape like this, and it's going to slightly alleviate the pressure on your head from that really tight knot that you've just tied, all right? I'm absolutely sure it's to do with the way you're tying them in. I'm absolutely sure of it, okay? Because it shouldn't, probably it's a little bit too high, the knot, and that's why it's popping this way, okay? Give it a try. Hi Andy, how can I predict what position my opponent's going to strike? Sometimes they look like they were going for men, but I got hit in the door instead. Yeah, it's a really simple way to do that. It's called years of experience. I mean, no, it is. Part of it is experience, and second is instead of reacting to what you think your opponent's going to do, try to make your opponent react to what they think you're going to do instead. All right, try to turn the tables, try to make it so that the interaction is about what you're going to strike rather than you worrying about what they're going to strike. Okay, that's the best way to deal with that. And if you get hit on the door a couple of times, you'll get hit on the door a couple of times. That's why you've got a burger, right? But it's just a case of practice, and like I say, just think about the mentality a little bit more. Try not to think about, oh, what's he going to do? Rather think about, right, what am I going to do? Okay. Next one. Hi, Andy. Hope all is well. I noticed after watching a few Kendo matches that sometimes when one person would attack men, the other person would sometimes move their head to dodge or avoid the hit. I was wondering if dodging like this, side to side or moving back, is also acceptable. Cheers and have an amazing new year. I mean, it depends what you mean by acceptable. It's not. Yeah, of course it's acceptable, especially in the shiai. It's not a good strategy. To be honest, it's definitely not a good way to defend yourself. Sometimes it's the only option you've got. You know, sometimes you have to just bail. It's better than losing the point. But that's, you know, it's definitely not a good strategy. You're gonna get hit if you try and dodge like this. It's really easy to hit somebody that dodges the head like that. Really easy. And similarly with somebody that sort of leans back like this. So it's definitely a not a good way to defend yourself. So, you know, don't try and do it. But of course, you know, you mustn't be struck in the shiai. That's the point. Okay. This is an important one. I know we had a comment a couple of weeks ago about the playing for time, and I did comment on it as well. You know, in shiai, it's your responsibility to do everything you can to win, to achieve victory over your opponent. If you don't do that, you're not giving your opponent a fair match, and that's not the correct spirit of shiai. So, you know, you can't. It's incorrect to you know, oh well, I'll never, you know, I'll never sacrifice my posture just to not lose the point in the shiai. It's like, well, okay, well, in that case, you're kind of robbing your opponent out of the proper shiai because you're not really doing it properly. That's not what you're supposed to do. So anyway, that's a totally different rant. Anyway, hi Andy, how common is it to get a calf strain or tears in Kendo? Any tips on preventing them? Also received my new kunai set. Can't wait till the next practice unit. Great, I'm glad you got the kunai. It's such an awesome set. Absolutely love mine. In terms of getting the calf strain and tears, it's super common. You have to stretch it, and it comes from flexibility as well. Try to stretch so you can get more flexibility. I'm not going to lie, I'm not super flexible, and I've torn both of my calves over the years doing Kendo. So yeah, it's a difficult one. It is a common injury, and it is something, unfortunately, that happens to a lot of us. Just make sure you're stretching a lot. Try to increase your flexibility, and hopefully you'll be able to avoid that injury. Okay, last one. Hello, Andy. First off, thank you for the great show. No, thank you. It helped me a lot with my understanding of Kendo over the recent years. Good. Couple of questions from me. One, is it proper technique to bounce the tip of the shinai off the floor after katatsugi? It doesn't seem right for me, yet it's very common even with high-level kendoka. What is the exact purpose of holding your shinai on the shoulder of your opponent during tsubazeriai? I know you can get hand socket for that. However, it's another common thing seen in shiai. 3, what are correct moments, distances to strike hikiwaza, for example, during separating? I mean, is there a moment in separating from tsubazeriai when any strike won't be considered valid until reaching isokuito again? Okay, so yeah, that's some 3 awesome questions. First, number 1, yeah, you often see it, right? Someone does katate tsuki, that's a one-handed tsuki, and then as they withdraw the shinai, they let it fall and they bounce it off the floor. It's a habit, it's a bad habit. Lots of people do it. I've done it myself in the past, not saying that, you know, I should or shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have done it, you know, but it's something I'd rather not do, but it is a habit. I can't think of it, and yeah, you will see very high level senseis even doing it. You will do, but you know, you won't find one that says, yeah, it's good to do that. Most of them, if you ask them, which don't ask them, by the way, don't ever go up to like the super famous player. We could pick names out of the top of our heads, I'm sure, that were like world championships players and say, why did you bounce the shinai after doing that amazing katate tsuki that sort of is historic in Kendo? Why did you do that? Is it really right to do that? Don't do that. Yeah, if you ever get the chance to meet someone like that. All right. But I'm sure if you did do that, they'd say, yeah, probably shouldn't have done that. Oh, well, zip on though, innit? You know, it's not like that. But I mean, you know, you don't lose the ippon for it, but it's probably better if you don't do it. Okay. Simple as that. Well, it is better if you don't do it. All right. It's not the best thing to do, but it is a bit of a habit, innit? 2, what is the exact purpose of holding the shinai on the shoulder? So you can't hold the shinai on the shoulder, and what you'll see in videos a lot is they're not really holding it on the shoulder for extended periods. They'll put it there sometimes, and they might do a bit of kuzushi, which is where you'll push this way. The thing is you know, it's not really. They'll sometimes do it as they're separating just to try and guard themselves a bit as well. That it does say that you're not supposed to do it, but what the spirit of the rule is really is what you can't do is you can't use it to like put your weight on, you know, on your opponent's body, and to unfairly do it, sort of egregiously or all the time. I think is the sort of spirit of that. If someone just pops it on there for a minute, you know, you've got to think about the spirit of the shiai, and of the rule itself, right? So, yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about it, but don't be like using it to sort of lean on them. And in terms of correct moments or distances to strike hikiwaza, so yeah, look, if you're in Super Zeriai, then you can. In normal times, we're not putting these temporary rules into the conversation right now, but in normal times, you know, if there's an opening, you can strike hikiwaza. But for example, it does have to be done at the right or a good opportunity. So you have to create an opportunity. You can't just hit. So for most people, when they're in Super Zeriai, you can reach the door without hitting their elbows whilst they're in the Super Zeriai position. If you do that, you won't get ippon because you haven't created a good opportunity. All right. What you have to do is you have to get them to do this, and then if you hit door, then it's ippon. You don't get hikido ippon just by getting around their kamae. So that's one thing. In terms of distances, yeah, I mean, you can strike hikiwaza sort of from the really close to the Zeriai distance, and as you starting to separate, of course, if one of you sort of like is, if someone sort of does this, right, yeah, let's separate, and then after they do that, then they try to hit when the other person sort of agrees, you're not getting ippon for that, and you shouldn't get ippon for that, right? That's not cool. In fact, it's kind of handsucker in Japan, that certainly for high school kids. And if you separate, then if you separate to here and then do not hikiwaza but try to do the forward waza, that's usually not ippon either. And again, in Japan, that can be handsucker in some cases. If you're going to separate, you have to separate to tormat before you start the interaction again. You shouldn't do this way, but it depends on the sort of level of the shiai and the shimpan. You can sometimes get away with it. Well, okay, that's it. Thank you for joining me today. What a wonderful set of questions. I really appreciate them. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe, shop at Kendo Star. Look forward to seeing you next week, and see you then. Bye bye.